Hi, everyone, and welcome to journey number 5. And today we have a guest that I'm super excited about, Kalia. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Okay, we went over it right before we started, so I was really going to be embarrassed if I literally forgot 30 seconds later. But yeah, so a little bit of background. We went to elementary together, right? And then
Mhm.
high school as well.
Mhm.
And then kind of lost touch. And then about
Yeah,
a year ago or so, kind of
I think
reconnected
so. Yeah.
when you were doing the paint nights, right?
Mhm.
Yes. And
Yeah.
so a cool little journey, I would say. And yeah, I was really excited, and you were one of the first people that popped up um, for a guest when I was a little more comfortable going outside of like a really close circle of people. And so
Mhm.
really excited to do this.
Me too. Thank you. Thank you for including me in this cool little thing you have going on. I'm really excited.
Of course. And so, a little bit of background here and kind of where it
Mhm.
started.
Mhm.
Really, about a year ago, started going through a quarter life crisis and kind of
Okay.
blew up my world. And as I started talking to more people about it, realized a lot of other people are going through quote unquote quarter life crises, midlife crisis, whatever it might be. But not a lot of people talk about it. And so I wanted to, talk to some other people that are either going through similar things or have been through
Mhm.
them, and just kind of, their journeys and where they're at now and where they're going.
Oh, I'm so excited.
So I guess the first thing is just if you can tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're up to
Mhm.
now, where you grew up, what your childhood was like, things like
Okay, perfect. That's a lot of things. So if I forget anything, just
that.
remind me.
Well, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I'm Kalia. I own Cakes and Canvas and Canvas by Cal. So Cakes and Canvas is kind of it's a company that provides baked goods, so any sort of custom cakes, cupcakes, cookies, anything sweet and yummy. And then we do paint nights as well. So around the city, we host local paint nights in local bars like Madison's. Yeah, so it's a really fun little evening date night kind of thing where you paint. I'm sure everybody knows what a paint night is. It's kind of come and you learn how to paint something fun and maybe have a few drinks. Um, yeah, and then I recently kind of separated. So everything was kind of all inclusive in Cakes and Canvas. And then I was like, okay, you know what? Like, I kind of need to pivot here because I couldn't really focus on the paint nights and the baking and my original paintings. So
Hmm.
I was like, okay, what if I just kind of separated a little bit? So now we have Canvas by Cal, which just focuses solely on my paintings, which I think is better because it just like I'm not kind of fighting for spotlight of baked goods and then paintings, and then you find your target and it's just kind of like, okay, well, what's my target audience? I have so many products kind of thing.
For sure. And
So
sorry, a quick question on that.
yeah.
Was that more like, did it help you organize it in your mind of keeping them separate, or was it more you found that people didn't really understand what was going on because there were so many different ones, and so you wanted to make it a little bit clearer for them?
um well, a little bit of both. Like, I think it's in the name, like Cakes and Canvas, so it's both. So people kind of knew that's what they were getting, but I find the majority of people that were following Cakes and Canvas or attending events or buying cakes, um, they were into the art, but they weren't really like buying art per se.
Gotcha.
So I kind of, yeah, I was like, okay, how do I fix this? Like, because this isn't, something's not working here. So it did help me, just for clarity, because it was just kind of, it was a little overwhelming having all these things and trying to get them all out, but not overwhelming other people.
For sure.
Um, yeah, so that's kind of how that came about. Does that answer the question?
No, for sure. And
Yeah.
what made you start Cakes and Canvas and Canvas by Cal?
Okay, so yeah, so it was an idea for a really long time. Um, I've always loved baking and painting since I was little. And my grandpa was a baker, so I kind of watched him do it and just loved it. And he taught me things along the way. Um, and I started in university. I really started just kind of painting as like a de-stressor outlet thing. I know de-stressing is not a word, but I'm using it anyway. Yeah, so I started using it just as an outlet for me to just kind of like just calm down because university can be quite stressful.
Yes.
Yeah, so I started posting them on Facebook, just kind of like, hey, I painted this or I baked this or whatever, and people were like, oh my god, these are really good, like I would buy these. And I was like, no, I'll give it to you for free, like
Yeah.
no. And then so I did that for a while, and then I graduated. So I graduated criminal justice. I know, far from what I'm doing now. So I graduated from criminal justice, and I started applying for things, and never really heard back from anybody. I don't know, like they were like, oh, she's too nice or whatever, but nobody wanted to hire me. And so I was kind of like stuck, and I was like, okay, well, what am I doing? What do I do? So I got small jobs here and there. And then I kind of went through a little bit of a low spot in life.
Mm-hmm.
My grandpa passed away, and he was like my best friend.
Yeah.
It's all good. It's life, right? He was a little older. He was 91. So yeah, so that happened, and I went through like a really bad breakup, and it just like it wasn't healthy.
Yeah.
And I don't think I healed from that properly. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I noticed, like I thought I was okay, and then when I noticed myself going down that path again, I was like, oh no, like no, we're not doing this. That was so bad. So I was like, okay, you know what? Like I got to do something. I got to take all this and put it into something like amazing, and put something beautiful, like make something beautiful and put it out in the world.
For sure.
And
Sorry, and
so
just to interrupt really quickly, when you said you felt yourself starting to go down that path again,
yeah.
was that just mentally, or was that in another relationship, or what did you mean by that?
So yeah, so it was kind of like going back down that same road, going back into that relationship of
Gotcha.
like just pure toxicness.
Okay.
Does that work? English is hard.
We can just use whatever words we want.
Okay, cool.
Who cares about English?
Perfect. And yeah, so I struggled with like depression and anxiety, and yeah. And so yeah, I didn't quite heal from that properly. Like I just kind of covered it up, and I was like, yeah, you know what? Like I'm okay. But then when things started coming up again, it was just kind of like, no, like I'm not okay. And so I took some time for myself, and I just really worked on me. And I was like, okay, so what do I want? Like, what do I want from this life? Where do I want to go? What do I want to leave here? And I kind of accepted all those things that I was so scared of showing the world, like I was so ashamed of. And I was like, I wrote them all down because it made it real. And I was like, okay, so these happened. Now move forward. Like I don't need to think about them anymore. I don't need to talk about them anymore. Moving forward, I've accepted them. And it was a step in accepting like who I was, because I also struggled with just self-confidence and self-esteem, like all that stuff. I feel like a lot of people, yeah. And yeah, it was just kind of like, it was a big point of change for me. I think it was just mentally, like you have to be very strong. And so I was like, okay, I'm starting Cakes and Canvas, like this is going, like this is working, and I'm not giving up on this. And so for a really long time, I woke up every morning and forced myself to be happy.
Okay.
And forced myself to be grateful. Like because you know, it's so easy to just get back into that, like I'm sad, like I'm a victim, like you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I was like, nope, like things are good. I'm grateful. I woke up, like we're doing things today. We're making the world a better place, and da 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 da. And like, so every second of every day, you mentally, you have to tell yourself, like, okay, you got this. Like, just you got this. You got this. You got this. You got this. And then eventually it becomes habit. And then
I was just going to ask, so some of those strategies that you used, like the writing out everything that you're ashamed of or that you're trying to hide from the world, as well as the, waking up and forcing yourself to be happy. where did you find those strategies? Did you just like, was there something inside of you that just told you that's what you needed to do? Did you read it somewhere? Did you talk to somebody? Like, where did those come from?
Um, so I I don't know, they just kind of came to me. Like
Okay.
I didn't because so the first time um so when I was really struggling with depression the first time, I did reach out to a couple people and like when you're struggling with depression, like you kind of need someone to say, okay, like what do you need?
Yeah.
And I was kind of just shut down, which therefore made me just go in this shell. And like so
Yeah.
going through it the second time, I was just like, no, like I got this. Like, and I didn't want to have, not that there's anything wrong with this, but I wanted to do it for myself. Like I didn't want to be dependent on any medication or
Hmm.
anything like that. I wanted to change me for me because I know how strong your mind is. Like you could literally do anything. Your only limit is yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of where that came from. So yeah, I started chasing canvas because I was like, I'm not gonna be sad anymore. I'm gonna make people happy too.
Yes,
So
that's
yeah,
super cool. Yeah, and
thanks.
actually, it's something that I've been really hot on recently. Is that that whole idea of bringing forward the things that you hold shame around, or that you're
Mm-hmm.
scared for people to see. And like when I think about it, I always think about like shining light on it,
Yep.
right? Of those sort of things, they fester in the darkness, and so just
Mm-hmm.
shining light on them, acknowledging them, showing that you see them.
Yeah.
And if you're able to, even telling other people about those. And
Yeah.
it's always funny how it's never as bad as you think it is in your mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in your mind, you go like, everybody will hate me, or nobody will even want
Yeah.
to talk to me again,
Yeah.
or like, they'll see me completely different. And then,
Mm-hmm.
it's this huge build up. And then you tell somebody and they're like, oh, okay, yeah. And you're like, what?
What are you getting for dinner? They're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So thanks for sharing all that too. And I guess just to
No.
share a little bit for myself,
Yeah.
I do go through depressive episodes as well. And it's not
Yeah.
necessarily been um, diagnosed or anything like that, but I just feel it,
No.
like
Yeah.
those low
Yeah.
points. And
Mm-hmm.
what's helped me very recently is, again, just kind of acknowledging it, right? Of
Yep.
like, okay, like, this is how I'm feeling. And
Mm-hmm.
um, knowing that that's probably what it is. And not, not just like, oh, why do I feel bad? Or like, I shouldn't feel
Mm-hmm.
bad. It's just like, okay. And having that
Exactly.
self-compassion of, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling bad. Like, I'll get through this. And a lot of times it's even just like a day thing. It's just like, you know
Yeah.
what? Like, let's get through this day and wake up tomorrow. And I
And
would
you're
say
good.
75% of the time you're okay,
Yeah.
or at least I am.
Yeah. No, I feel
And
that.
then, yeah. And then once it starts lasting for longer, if it goes into a
Then
couple
yeah.
days or weeks, then it's like, okay, maybe I need to do something else. Right. And like get a
Yeah.
little bit bigger of a kick. But again,
Mm-hmm.
just, acknowledging it has helped me so much personally.
Mm-hmm. It's good that you're like, I feel like the first step is being self-aware
Hmm.
and knowing, hey, you know what? Like I might be going down this dark path. Like
Yeah.
you know yourself well, you know yourself well enough to know that mentally you're just not okay, and you can just like instead of just throwing it under the rug and then until the rug is like this and you're like, oh, okay, something's
Yeah.
wrong, like
Yeah.
so no, that's good. And so are they like happening often for you or
Yes and no. Like the longer episodes, it's funny, if I didn't even realize that that's what was happening. And the first one was right after high school, my first like real low like
wow,
episode, I
okay.
guess you could call it, or period,
Mm-hmm.
extended period,
Mm-hmm.
where it's just like something's off,
Yeah.
right? And so, and just over the years since then, it's kind of been on and off. A lot of times, though, what I was doing is just keeping myself so extremely busy
Yeah.
that I would kind of just push through it, because it's like, I'll
Mm-hmm.
distract myself until it goes away. Um, yeah. And so, um, until this, let's say this past year, I really started digging into things and really started addressing things, and more so even going underneath of like, okay, like let's see the things that I'm actually struggling with. And the journey for that began probably about 3 years ago, but this last year it's been like, okay, we've kind of ripped away all of the surface level layers, and now it's like, oh, these are some deep rooted things that I was not aware of. And so I don't know, it's I try not to, again, I try not to judge them too much, and I try not to put too much weight into them of just like bad days, and it's just acknowledging them. Okay, today's a bad day, and then I wake up tomorrow and I feel okay, and so then I put it out of my mind, right? Instead of going down that rabbit hole of oh, here it comes again, I'm gonna yeah. And so when you said, so you reached out to a couple of people those first time, and the reaction that you got wasn't necessarily what you needed, right?
Yeah.
And I guess if you could go into both two sides on one, like when you're struggling with something like that, you said quickly that you need people or you would like people to ask you what you need.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you can go into that just a little bit deeper of, what you were looking for from other people. And then on the flip side too, of, somebody who isn't necessarily struggling with it, but they might have a friend who is, and what they can do, and how best to support that person.
I think for me, I want, like, because it was something like I was kind of ashamed of it.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know how to navigate it, and I felt so alone.
Yeah.
And so for me to reach out, it was like a really big thing. And what I got was, oh, you should probably talk to someone. And I was like, well, yeah, I'm trying to talk to you.
Yeah.
So that kind of just like, it just made me shut down even more, because you're in that mental state of just like, nobody's there for me, I'm alone, and and then you push yourself to try to tell someone, and then to you that feels like you're being shut down, so why would you try again, kind of thing. So honestly at that time I just wanted someone to listen, but I felt like I couldn't talk to anybody, and I know that's on me, I'm in control of how I feel. I could have pushed through and I could have contacted someone else, but in that time I felt like I couldn't. So yeah, I really just needed someone to listen to me and maybe just kick me in the butt and be like, girl, what is going on? Like, get your shit together. And now I have a very kind of proactive mindset instead of a reactive mindset. So like, if someone came to me and they were like, hey, Kalia, I feel like I could be struggling with depression. And I'm like, okay, I feel that. Like, I'm a very empathetic person.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, what can I do? What do you need? How can I help you? And sometimes I'm not the greatest at this, but sometimes like I said, I just needed someone to listen.
Yeah.
But I'm like, they're telling me how they feel and whatever. I'm like, okay, so this is what we got to do. Like, I'll help you.
Yeah.
So, but I think just to start out, you just need to listen to them. I think they just need to feel heard. Like I just needed to feel heard.
For
so
sure.
I think that's the biggest. But it's like, it's a fine line between feeling heard and listening to them, but then not playing into like making them feel worse about themselves. Like it's a constant thing of them like I would then complain and complain and complain, and then we're not getting anywhere, and then it just makes me feel worse, kind of thing.
For sure.
So maybe even just distracting the person, like not necessarily telling them, hey, I'm distracting you, but like, hey, do you want to just maybe go for a walk or an ice cream, or just feel like they're not alone.
For sure. And I'm really glad that you said that, because just for me, when I start getting into those states, one thing that it has helped me is just forcing myself to be around other people.
Yeah.
Right. And even if I'm not necessarily going into it or talking about it, I have a really bad tendency to isolate myself. Right. And then you just get stuck in your head, and then it just keeps going and going and going.
Downward spiral.
Yes. And so even though I don't want to, I'm like, I don't want to see anybody right now. Forcing myself just to be around people, a lot of times is that first step. Right. And then you can go into it, possibly depending who the person is and depending when you're ready. But For sure.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Cool.
And switching gears a little bit right now, and going
Okay.
back to your businesses, and you're
Mm-hmm.
doing them full time, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And
So
yeah.
that's my life. Yeah.
And so I was going to say, first of all, that's a very tough thing to do. And I'm always so excited when I see you out there killing it,
Oh, thank
working
you.
super hard and,
Thank you.
really pursuing your passion and something that you love
Thank
doing. And could you just go into a little bit of that, and specifically for you, on
you. Mm-hmm.
what gave you that courage to continue and still continue going on and pursuing those passions, and not necessarily taking the traditional route?
Mm. Yeah. Um, well, it's not always easy, as I'm sure you know, owning
Yeah.
businesses yourself. Yeah, there are days where you just sit down, like, there's been plenty of days where I just like fall on the ground and I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, oh my gosh. But,
Yeah.
but then there's so many more days that outweigh those days that I get a message that's like, oh my God, you're amazing. Like your posts, your videos, your cakes, your paint night, whatever it is, it made me so happy. Like it made, like, it's like whatever it is, I get a message of positivity, and like that I cakes and canvas helped or added to someone's life, and I'm like, okay, this is this is this is totally forever will be worth it. Like it's not so much the money for me, it's more so just kind of affecting people and putting some sweetness into this world, because I feel like there's a lot of not so sweetness in this world right now. So yeah,
Love
no,
that.
that's the main thing that's been keeping me going, is just seeing how happy cakes and canvas makes people. Um, yeah, and I love doing it. Like I love making cake. The other day I made a pickle cake. I didn't think I could ever make a pickle cake, but I made a cake that looked like a pickle. Um, so yeah, and the paint nights are always so fun. Like I meet the most amazing people, and I'm very grateful to do what I do. But yeah, some days are easier than others, that's for sure.
For sure. And I love that. And putting a little
Yeah.
bit more sweetness in the world. I absolutely love that. So,
Thanks.
the other interesting thing too is that you're completely self-taught, right?
Yeah, yeah, I've never been to school for any of this. So, and I'm learning along the way. Like that, I
Hmm.
think that's one of the coolest things, is like when, like, the pickle cake. Okay, how the heck do you make a pickle cake? But you just figure it out. Like I never say no to like challenges or new cakes or new flavors or whatever, because then I get to learn something too, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
And
I think
I love that. And I think, again, something else that I've been thinking a lot about is the idea of pushing against the supposed to do, as
yeah,
in this is the way you're supposed to do it,
yeah,
right? And when somebody thinks like, oh, okay, if I'm going to start, a baking company, right?
mm-hmm,
Well, I probably have to go to school for that, or I can't be an artist if I haven't gone to
mm-hmm.
school for it. And I'm curious, if have you gotten pushback on any of that, or even if it's just that internal of like, maybe a little bit of imposter syndrome, and what helped you get over that? Or was it just always, I'm just going to do it and I don't, it doesn't really matter?
Yeah. Well, even starting the business, like I didn't have any background in business. Like I
Hmm.
had no knowledge in starting anything, but because I was at where I was at, I was in that place. I was just kind of like, I'm doing it. I don't care.
Yeah.
And like going, like thinking back, okay, I would have maybe read a few books or something, but I
Yeah.
mean, we're here now. I've never felt like I shouldn't be here. I don't know if it's because I've just been through what I've been through, and I like now I just hold my own, and I'm like, you know what, this space that I have on the planet is mine, and I take it and I own it, and I'm putting out, like, I know what I'm putting out, and I know there are people that can make cakes 10 times better than what I make. But I mean, I don't look at it so much as competition. There is room for all of us to succeed. So yeah, there's a girl that makes great cakes. There's another girl, there's a guy that makes great cakes. But there's a lot of people in this world. So I mean, and I can't supply 7 billion people with cakes right now. So
Yes.
really, I should be thanking them.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I don't. Sometimes you get in your head a little bit and you're like, oh boy, like you see some cakes and you're like, wow, like I don't know if I could ever. And then you're like, no, you can do it. Like you can do anything. You just gotta practice, practice, practice. And the fact that like I do have so many clients that do return and they always have such sweet things to say to me, like that's like, okay, you know what, like I'm okay, like I'm doing good, even though like sometimes when you see, like especially on social media, like a lot of our friends, I'm sure you see it too, they're getting married, having babies, getting houses, cars, all these things, and I'm like, I'm just putting all my money into this. But then you think about it long term, right? So
Yeah,
it's more so, yeah, it's a little bit of sacrifice now, but just think of what it will be later.
for sure. And
So
I love that.
yeah,
And I mean, one of the points that I just wanted to put out there too is that better is a subjective term,
agreed.
right? And
Agreed.
just, maybe because somebody is more technically sound in their cake
Mm-hmm.
making might be better for one person and might be worse for another, right? Somebody might
Exactly.
care more about you as a person, or the care that went into creating that, or whatever it might be. And so better is
Mm-hmm.
completely subjective. And I think we get into our
Totally.
heads a lot of times of, this is what I want to be, or like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
they're so much better than me, when in actuality, they're better in different ways,
Yep.
right? And you're better in different ways.
Mm-hmm. I
And
agree with that.
yeah, and again, going back to that, like the idea that a lot of people that we grew up with are doing the quote unquote things you're supposed to do
The
again.
posted thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that's really where I've made a big conscious effort to really just almost focus on myself and knowing what's right for
Mm-hmm.
me at this moment. And it
Exactly.
might be right for them in that moment for their
Uh-huh.
life, which is amazing. And, I'm happy for them. And then looking at me, I go, that's not where I'm at in my life right
No.
now. And so, try not to have any resentment towards that, or,
Exactly.
any FOMO or anything like
Yeah.
that. And just knowing that those things will come too when I'm ready for them.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I think there everything happens for a reason, and everything comes just when it's supposed to. And sometimes it's difficult trusting that, but I think that's one of the main things that's gotten me through this far, is like, and even through COVID, like like it was like everything was frozen, and I'm like, okay, what do I do? And now like things are slowly picking up again, and I'm like, okay, it's scary for everyone, right?
Yeah.
I know all the businesses had to pivot somehow,
Hmm.
right? So, but yeah, no, I agree with you, and just kind of knowing we definitely live a different lifestyle than
Yes.
normal people.
I always say normal's boring anyways, so.
Exactly. You gotta be a little weird and crazy. Like who else wakes up at 3 a.m. to bake? Yeah.
That
So
was definitely one thing I wanted to commend you on is, for lack of a better term, your hustle
oh,
of
thank you.
waking up, and like me thinking that I have, sometimes crazy schedules,
Oh, you do.
and then, seeing your message at 3:30 a.m. I'm like, yeah, no, she has me beat.
I sent him and I'm like, I looked at the time, like, oh, I hope I didn't wake him up. Oh no.
No, we were good.
Okay.
And so switching gears a little bit here again is,
Mm-hmm.
can you talk a little bit about your childhood and just kind of growing
Yeah.
up, and,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a little bit of your relationship with your parents?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just things like that. Anything that sticks out about your childhood.
Okay. All right. So I was always very shy, and you know this. very, very shy. I had a great relationship with my parents. I was an only child. They were really supportive of me and just kind of like, they were I know this is so cheesy, but they were my best friends, right? They were more private, more reserved. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of how I was more quiet, shy, private. Um, and I had friends, but it was really difficult with girls
Mm-hmm.
to be friends with. Yeah. So I struggled with that because like I had the girlfriends, but sometimes then they would be mean and make fun of you behind my back and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. So it was just weird because like I wanted I really wanted to have friends because I didn't have siblings. So like going to school, like I wanted to make friends, I wanted to have friends, and then it you kind of get in this like let downy thing, and you put all your hopes into it, and then you're like, and you have expectations of these people, and then you get let down, right? And
Yeah.
it was a constant thing throughout growing up. It was the same thing. It was so hard to make friends with girls, right? And
Mm-hmm.
also because like I didn't really, my dad didn't really want me to wear name brands growing up, so
Okay.
like I didn't. And I was more like tomboy, so I wore like kind of baggier clothes, stuff like that, right? And so I was kind of a little bit self-conscious that way. And it didn't help that some girls weren't very nice, so it
Mm-hmm.
made you more self-conscious. Um, and then there was some bullies in junior high. But I mean, like all of that, I don't say it and I'm sad about it.
Mm-hmm.
I say it and I am grateful that I have experienced it because I feel for like if some like I love working with kids, so like if I do paint nights with kids or whatever, if someone comes up to me and talks like brings that up and starts talking, I'm like overflowing with empathy because I feel for them. Like
Yeah.
I know what it's like. You have all these insecurities in your head already, and then for someone to be mean to you in whatever way and highlight those insecurities, that's like it's so detrimental, and you just like you're like, oh my god, like I'm not gonna have any friends, blah, blah, blah. And then you don't make friends with the girls, so
Yeah.
then you make friends with the guys, and then the girls get mad at you for being friends with the guys because they want to date the guys, but the guys don't want to date you because you're not cute. So it's like I don't know what to do. So yeah, that was pretty much my whole life.
And so I'm curious too. Do you think
Yeah.
so that overwhelming like want to have the friends because
Mm-hmm.
being an only child and like just so wanting to be friends and have
Mm-hmm.
lots of friends, do you think that led you into potentially like trying to make friendships with
Yeah.
um people that necessarily weren't the nicest, or
Mm.
people that weren't
Yeah.
necessarily healthy for you? Do you think that's
Mm-hmm.
where some of it came from?
Yeah. So yeah, because you just want it so bad. You're just like you get the slightest bit of like affection enough, like or I don't know what's the word. Like not obviously not affection like in a relationship, but like in a
Hmm.
friendship. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
for sure.
And you cling on to that, and you're like, oh, okay, we're friends, and then something happens, and you're like, and then so in my head, I was like, oh, we're friends, but in their head, they were like, so yeah, I think you just jumped too fast. Um, but now it's helped me just because I only have expectations of myself.
Okay.
I don't hold any expectation to anyone in my
Hmm.
life. They know how I live my life, and they know kind of the people I want to meet around me. Um, and if they can't vibe with that or kind of get on board with that, then I'm there for you. Like I won't go anywhere, but I'm just gonna distance myself because I'm so self-aware now. Like I'm just
Hmm.
like, okay, so these are my vibes. I need to keep them sacred, and like if anybody messes with this, like nope. And it's like, do you know Violet in The Incredibles? that force field thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So that's me. I'm like, I love,
Yeah.
like, I'll like show you all the love, but I'm so protective of my vibes now. Like, and that's how you, like, expectations lead to disappointment. And
Mhm.
you can't, I truly believe you can't expect anything from anyone. Like, when you do things, like when you do things in life, you do it because you want to do it, not because you expect something in it, right?
Yeah.
Or if you're friends with someone, don't ever expect anything from it. Yeah, okay, you talk about it and you're like, okay, you know, like small things, respect, honesty, loyalty, stuff like that. Cool. But as soon as you throw expectations in the mix, like, I feel like it's kind of, it can get a little muddy, because then you're expecting things and then they don't rise to that occasion, and then you hold resentment towards them, kind of thing. And it's just, yeah. So
It does. It's
okay.
a ton of insight, and thank you so much for sharing that. And
Yeah.
um, I think a touch of it, something we both share as well,
Mm.
um, is we always see the best in people. We always see the
Yeah.
good in them, right? And sometimes it leads to overlooking those
Mm-hmm.
negative aspects of them, or
Mm-hmm.
instances when they did something to make us feel not the greatest,
Mm-hmm.
right? And just to share as well with you is, I got bullied a lot growing up as well. And now that I've dug into it a little bit, one, it was that wanting to belong,
Yeah.
right? And wanting to be friends with the popular kids,
Mm-hmm.
and wanting to be popular, wanting people to like me.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one was a realization I came to, was unwittingly, and I don't blame her for this, but just by the feedback that I got, the way that I took it from my mom, was that, oh, if people are mean to you, they just want to be your friends, right? And so,
Mm-hmm.
a subconscious feeling that, oh, people that need to be mean to me to be my friend, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so overlooking that and just being like, oh, that's how people show that they care about you, is that they're mean to you, right? And
Mm-hmm.
going through and working through that for years on years and years, and finally, bringing it into the light of like, oh, like this is where this comes from, right? And now reworking that. And yeah, just over the last couple of years, very similar to you, is a lot of my relationships, friendships have changed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because I've changed so much. And
Mm-hmm.
it's, sometimes people aren't able to change with me, and I don't expect them to, right?
Nope.
And I also show up differently in those relationships too,
Yeah.
as a different person. I've changed the rules
Mm-hmm.
now on this
Yeah.
relationship. And so sometimes it stays the same, sometimes it changes, sometimes it just doesn't work,
Yeah.
right? And for me, at least, it's never necessarily a big blow up of like,
Mm-mm.
we're
No,
not
no,
friends
no.
anymore,
Yeah.
right? Like, I don't
Right.
want, I don't want
Yeah.
you around me.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just, adjustments, and you just kind of
Yeah.
drift away. Or at least it's, what, I can't be around this person as much as I have been
Yeah.
in the past.
Mm-hmm.
It's not sitting right with me. It's not making me feel great. It's not making me feel the
Mm-hmm.
way that I used to. And so,
Yeah.
evolving that way and finding new people that, more align with current values. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. Yeah. I think I was a very, I guess, similar to you, submissive person. So, like, you would just kind of like just throw things under the rug, and like, yeah, but it would eat away at you, or it would hurt you,
Yes.
but you wouldn't really talk about it. And now you're like, no, I have
Yeah.
feelings too.
Yeah.
They matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you talk about it in like a discussion. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be an argument. I don't
Yeah.
really agree with argument. Like, I'd rather just sit down and talk about it instead
Yeah.
of screaming at each other. I don't think that solves anything.
For sure. And it
Yeah.
was it was something that I realized I did a lot too, of I would build resentment and build resentment and build
Mm-hmm.
resentment and
Me
build
too.
resentment until it was a big deal. Right.
Yeah.
And whether that be an actual fight, but not a ton in my life, or just, I'm done with this person and completely cut ties with them. Um, Whereas it could have just been a conversation at the beginning
Mm-hmm.
of like, hey, this is how I felt when you said this or when you did this. or just addressing it, because sometimes people don't actually realize that it's triggering something in you, right?
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily doing it on purpose. And so addressing it off the bat can save a lot of pain.
For everyone, because I feel like sometimes when those blow ups happen, the person's like, "What?
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about?" And you're like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah. Am I crazy?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 So, and it's so, I feel like as humans sometimes things are so simple. They're very, very simple, but we overcomplicate everything.
Yeah.
Everything. Like, okay, let's say starting a business, for example. Okay, it's quite simple. Yes, it's very scary,
Hmm.
but it's quite simple. You want to do it? Do it. Like, that's literally it. But then you're like, no, okay, no, I'm not in the right headspace. Okay, I don't have enough money financially. Okay, okay, when I'm in better shape, okay, whatever, when I get new clothes, like whatever it is, like there's so many excuses, and
Yeah.
I feel like action over excuses. Like,
Yes,
if you're gonna do it, do it. That talk is cheap, you know.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll never be 100% ready.
No,
Right?
never,
Yeah.
ever,
Yeah.
even for like a relationship, friendship, buying a house, starting a business, anything. Like, you just have to do it. Like, you
Yeah.
just have to do it. And I feel like the bigger the risk, the bigger the gain.
Yeah.
It's just it's how you look at it. Yeah, okay, it could be the bigger the risk, the bigger the fall, but really, is it a fall if you're learning? Like,
Yeah.
then you come back higher the next time.
Yeah.
So I like, mentality is huge.
For sure. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that's a big mental shift too, of,
Mm-hmm.
changing your thinking to it's learning, it's not necessarily failing.
Yeah.
Right? Even if I go and fall flat on my face and,
Mm-hmm.
fail miserably, if you're able to take those learnings so that you can apply them next time or in other
Mm-hmm.
areas of your life, it's still been a net positive experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. A little bit of a random question, but what was
Yeah.
your dream job as a kid?
Oh my god. Okay, like how little?
Whatever comes to mind.
Um, so dream job for a really long time was gonna, like, I wanted to be
Oh, what, sir?
a Spice Girl.
A Spice Girl. That
Yeah.
might be one of my favorite answers for a dream job ever,
Yes.
by the way. Yeah.
So yeah, that was top of the list.
Did you want to be one of the specific Spice Girls, or did you have your own Spice Girl name?
I wanted to be Baby Spice.
Gotcha. Okay.
Well thought out. Wasn't
Yeah.
this? Yeah. So yeah, that was my dream
I
job.
love that. Love that.
And you?
I wanted to be an astronaut for the
Of
longest
course.
time. And like very seriously wanted to do it too. I've now
Oh.
switched my thinking, and now I just need to make enough money to fly into space without
All
going through
right.
the whole
So
astronaut
like
thing.
15
So
mil and you're good.
yeah. Yeah. So I think it was more so just the fact of going to space as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
being an astronaut itself, but that was the only way that you could do it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's cool though. Well, you'll
Yeah.
get there one day.
One day
Yeah.
I'm gonna make sure I will
Okay.
I will
Me too.
sell everything I own just so I can go out there. Okay, what about when I say like a life mission? Like, have you
Mm-hmm.
found a life mission, or call it a North Star, um, for your life that helps you navigate through your decisions?
Yeah. I know this sounds really cheesy. Um, but it's I really think it's just to add happiness in people's lives. Like, I truly believe that's why I'm here and why I'm doing what I'm doing, is to just add some sort of something to someone's life, whether it's a little bit of positivity, whether it's a smile, whether it's a laugh, whether it's a listening ear, like whatever it is, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's why I'm here. That's my purpose. And so when I make decisions regarding myself or the company, I'm kind of like, okay, yes, you kind of have to be selfish and be like, okay, you know, is this helping me? Because if there's no me, then there's no nothing. So
Yeah.
you kind of have to be selfish that way. And I've learned that the hard way, where you work so hard, you burn out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people are like, oh, let's hang out. I'm like, okay, like 1 hour sleep.
Yeah.
But like saying no is okay, right?
Yeah.
So staying true to your purpose, but also staying true to you so that you can fulfill your purpose, I think is something that I've learned, and still learning. Like it's hard to say no to, like, I just,
Yes.
because I'm like, oh, I'm gonna make you a yummy cake, even though I'm like overbooked, and they're like, please. And I'm like, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's still a learning process, but as long as it stays true to affecting people in a positive way, um yeah, kind of where I know it's kind of like a small, not like ginormous big thing, it's just kind of small, but it's big for me, like, to
No,
know that you've touched someone. It just, like, yeah, so that's
I was
kind of
gonna
my.
say, like, not at all. Like, it's not cheesy at all, and it doesn't seem small at all, because
Thank you.
making an impact in one person's life is humongous, and bringing them happiness or affecting them positively, even if it's just one person, is
Yeah,
huge. And I think that, the world could be a lot better of a place if people were more okay with quote unquote small missions like that.
yeah.
And no, so I resonate a ton with it. And it's actually an idea that really helped push me over the edge for even starting a podcast, was the
Okay.
idea of, well, I had a lot of thoughts creeping in of like, well, nobody's going
Mhm.
to listen, or like, it's going to be
Of course.
tiny, no
Yeah.
one's going to care.
Yeah.
And switching that to, if it positively impacts even one person, it's worth
Just
it.
the one person. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I love that. And the other thing that you touched on, which I've been on a bit of a kick as well lately, is that
Yeah.
idea of, needing to be selfish to be selfless. Right.
Mhm.
And like you were talking about, that if there is no you, you can't help other people. Right. And if you push yourself too hard or stretch yourself too thin, or don't take
Mhm.
care of yourself, you can't positively
No.
impact those other people. Right.
Yeah.
And, again, removing that almost stigma of anything around, like, you're allowed to do things just for you. Right. It doesn't
It's
have to
not
have an
bad.
ulterior motive
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
just, yeah, I want to sleep in today.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Like,
it's, if the people that don't understand that, well, that's okay. Like, I feel like you have to take that fear of judgment out of your head. Like, it
yeah,
just can't. You just gotta be you, do you, and trust that you, like, trust your morals, trust your values, and trust that you're doing what's best for you. And
yeah,
like, yeah, okay, criticism, good, great, awesome, thank you. Like, it'll help. But if someone's like, oh, they just see you sleep in for one day, or they see you take a day off, they don't know the full story and they judge you. And I feel like some people take that on. Like, you don't know me. You
yeah.
don't know what kind of like.
Yeah.
We say, like, if there are people that do focus on the negative, and they do say negative things, unfortunately,
Yeah,
but you just can't focus on that. You gotta just focus on the positive and trust that you're doing the right thing.
for
What
sure.
about you?
What about me?
um Wait, brain fart. What's your purpose?
um So that's actually the reason why I asked this question, because for the longest time, and still, I don't necessarily have an answer to that.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
And so that's why I'm always curious to hear what other people say. And
Interesting.
I've started to get a little bit more clarity.
Okay.
And so what I brought it back to very recently, and has helped me a ton and has led to some of this clarity, is I
Mm-hmm.
really took a step back and said, okay, Like my purpose for right now is to be happy. And
Love
yeah.
that. Okay.
Yeah. And
Yay.
so trying to get to that point, because as I really started digging into things and my psyche and mental health, I started to realize that I'd really never been happy, truly happy in my life. Right. And so I said, okay, you know what? Like, I don't know what my North Star is. I don't know, what I want to dedicate my life to. But for right now, let's focus on being happy. And again, as small as that is, it at the same time is humongous. Right. And so that's what I've been focusing on lately.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good. It makes me so happy that you're focusing on making you happy, because I feel like you're like similar to me, and you are always worried about other people and if they're happy and how they're doing. And for you to just take the time and just kind of make you happy.
For sure.
Yay!
Yes. Yes. No, it's been good. And again, going back to that taking care of yourself, right, is because I have always been the emotional rock for a lot of people in my life.
Yep.
Right. Is,
I feel
people coming to me and, putting their problems on me and me being there to support them. I go, well, they're going through something right now. Like, I need to support them. I don't want to put any of my problems back onto them. Right. Like, I'm strong enough to take this on, I'll take it on. I'll deal with everything myself. And then realizing that it was actually a disservice to those people for me never to be vulnerable, and me never to share what I'm going through. Right. And it's actually helped me support them better by taking time for myself and sometimes saying no to them, or like, I don't have the energy or the space to take this on right now. Like, I'm so sorry. Yeah, for sure. And it's okay that, you don't have to kill yourself to make somebody else feel better. Right. And because of doing that, I've actually gotten to a lot better place, and I've been able to support them a lot better. And, like, some of them have really felt it too. And it's funny how that, again, being a little bit selfish and working on myself has actually helped me to be more selfless. And so, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. In the last couple of minutes here, I was just wanting to see, is there anything we didn't get to that you wanted to talk about? Any questions for me that you had? Anything like that?
I have a question for you.
Yes.
What do you feel is one of the most difficult things about being a business owner?
One of the most difficult things about being a business owner, I would say a lot of times the loneliness, right? Of feeling all of that pressure, right? Of at least like the way that I typically like to try to do things is really putting myself last for business, right? And putting everybody else above me and making sure that they're okay and taking on their pressure. And not necessarily, one, having a lot of people that you can talk to about it, and two, not having a lot of people that actually understand.
Yeah, that's a big
right. And I think that's one of the biggest things, is that people that have never owned a business or been in that sort of position, a lot of them just don't really understand.
No.
Right. Of the pressure you put on yourself, of how your business is basically another child, right? Or a child to you. It's a part of you. It's more than just work, right? Yeah. And so there is a big disconnect between the understanding, right? Of they can understand parts of it, but they don't understand all of it. And that's why I do think it's very important to connect with other people, like other entrepreneurs, other business owners, because they at least understand some of the same things that you're going through.
Yeah. And sometimes they know what you need to hear, and they say it, and you're like, okay, we're good. Let's go.
Yeah. Or the other thing I would say too, is that they understand the little things that help you get to the actual answer of, you said that you're waking up at 3 o'clock so you can fulfill orders, right? I feel like a lot of times, most other people you say that to are like, what, are you crazy? Why do you do that?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And whereas they might be able to get past that of like, oh yeah, no, I get that. Like, if that's what you got to do, that's what you got to do.
Yeah.
Like, you know, now let's see, okay, do you just want to vent about that? Or like, let's see if we can figure out a better way to organize it so that you don't have to get up that early. Right. And go that level deeper of like, okay, what's the actual problem here? Instead of getting stuck on, you're crazy, you're getting up at 3, you just shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Like, well, no, I have to do that.
Yeah, exactly. But that's exactly what people tell me is like, can you just not? Like,
Yeah.
no, well, the quality of my product, like I want it to be
Yeah.
fresh. Therefore, I wake up at 3 a.m. to bake it.
Yeah.
So it goes out and it's fresh and it's good. Yeah, I could bake it the night before or a couple days before.
Yeah.
I could easily do that. But that's not my standard.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, but no, I get exactly what people do. It's hard and you can't fault them for not understanding that.
No, exactly. And it's just that disconnect is there. Right. So yeah.
Well, if you ever need to talk, I'm here.
Yes. Same to you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay, so let's flip this. I know we're kind of running over, but what is your favorite part of being a business?
My favorite part, I'd say it's twofold.
Okay.
One, I really enjoy the leadership aspect of building other people. And so for me, I actually see what you do as extremely difficult, and I don't know if I could do it. Where I, doing almost absolutely everything myself is what I'm doing now in a new venture, which is just so different as opposed to what I'm used to of having employees, having staff, and building them up. And I think that's really what I enjoy the most is watching people grow, enabling people and empowering them and seeing them grow from where they started into these new leaders within a company. I absolutely love that, of watching that growth in people. And then the second part is I actually just love the competitiveness of it.
Really?
I love the idea that you are rewarded on your efforts and your abilities, which is a big difference of like, oh, I worked 8 hours, so I got paid for 8 hours.
No. Yeah, I feel you.
Yes.
Yeah. And sometimes I think you have to be a very strong-minded person to own a business, I feel, because there are a lot of days where you work 12, 16, 18 hours and you don't see that financially.
Yep.
So yeah, but it comes, like, you just have to trust that it will come,
For sure. And one of the most interesting things for me was, how the time necessarily matters less. And what I mean by that is that, so when I was working on one project, I was in a situation, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. It was when we were building Madison's and I was in charge of the construction. I had no idea what I was doing. I made it up as I went. I felt like I was always behind. I was also running the meal delivery company at the same time. And so I would work on that and run that too. And I was working 6-7 days a week, 16 hours a day, just nonstop, high stress, just go, 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 go. And funny enough, one of my favorite times was around 6 p.m. because that's when everyone else stopped working. So I felt like I could actually get work done. Right. And, however, when I was there, even though I was super stressed and tired, I enjoyed it. Right. And I felt less tired than when I was in a different position in more of a quote unquote job. When I'd work 8 hours a day, I would come home twice as tired as when I was working 16. Right. And it was more so just because of the work that I was doing, not because of the time that I was putting in, or even necessarily the
Mm-hmm.
stress level.
Mm-hmm. I think also the environment as well.
Yeah.
So if you're like around, like typically in those types of like the normal-ish jobs that people have, it's like 9 to 5 and everybody's miserable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very rarely do you find people that actually enjoy what they're doing,
Yeah.
that are in those kinds of jobs. And so when you're around, like you and I were around, well, I mean, I'm around cake, so like, yes, I talk to my cakes, but I mean, you like, you're around people that enjoy doing what they're doing, right? And so it makes it easier. And you enjoy, like you said, you enjoy what you're doing. So
Yeah.
yeah, cool. Beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. Look at us go.
Amazing. I know.
Perfect.
Any other questions on your end?
No, I think that's about. Do you enjoy, like, do you have lots of, like, I know you were saying you've been focusing on making you happy.
Mm-hmm.
Does that involve like a lot of like you time in the sense of like taking yourself on dates, and just because I feel the stigma of being alone in public is like it's almost negative, like it's a negative
Yeah.
thing. But I quite enjoy it. Like I love going to movies by myself, or going grabbing a bite by myself. Do you do that? Is that something?
I do that. I
Okay.
would say that it's less so. So I would say the big shift in my mindset and making me happy has more been my internal um, self-talk, more so than the
Oh,
actual outward actions. Because
okay.
I've always been a little bit weird, and I have no problem eating by myself.
Oh,
And so,
you're so. Oh.
yeah, yeah. And so, especially if one of my jobs when I was just in university, when I was doing the painting thing, I would
Mhm,
travel all over Alberta like
mhm,
constantly, and
mhm.
a lot of times by myself. And so I'd go into like sit down restaurants, and the servers would come
Good
up
for
to me and like
you.
triple check on me, like, "Are you sure you're okay?" I'm like, "Oh
Yeah.
yeah, no, I'm fine. Like it's
Oh,
just me. Like don't
yeah.
worry." um,
Yeah.
so I've never necessarily had a problem with that. I would say a lot
Oh.
more of my problem um, was like the view that I had of myself, and my
Mhm.
that internal critic, that self critic, and
Okay.
that self
Yeah.
talk. And so for me, my biggest shift that has helped me the most has
Mhm.
been really focusing on self compassion, right?
That's a
And
good one.
that's everything from you know um, it's okay that you didn't do as much work today as you wanted to.
Today.
It's
Yes.
okay that you slept in today, right? It's okay that things didn't go the way you wanted them to go, right? And
Mhm.
even just like tiny, tiny, tiny little things that I typically would beat myself up on,
Yeah.
right? Of constantly of like, oh, you didn't do this today, you're gonna fail, you're gonna be nothing, you're gonna whatever it might be, that
No.
rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Just being like, it's okay.
You're doing the best
And
you can.
yeah, and so that has been the biggest shift for me, I would say, is
Good.
more so that internal thought process as
Mhm.
opposed to um, like the actual actions that I'm doing.
Fair enough.
But
Wow. Kudos to you for eating by yourself like all the time.
yeah, well, I
I
was
have
gonna,
like the. Go ahead.
I was gonna ask like for you and on those actions and
Yeah.
why you started doing those. Have they helped when you started doing them? Yeah, and just whatever
Yeah.
you're about to say about eating by yourself.
Yeah, I never, because like I told you, I was so shy, so like
Yeah,
I never did that, like I never went out by myself. And then I thought about it, because like you're like, I wouldn't do things that I wanted to do because no one wanted to do them with me. But it's
yeah,
like, no, you want to do that, so go do it. Like,
yeah,
what does it matter if there's someone? And now, like, I mean, if you think about it, you don't go to the movies to talk to anybody. So
yeah,
realistically, everybody should be going to the movies by themselves. But like,
yeah,
if I told anybody, they're like, "Oh my God, I can come with you." And I'm like, "No, but I want to go by myself. Like, I like
yeah,
spending time by myself."
yeah,
So that, like, that helped me, because I pushed myself to grow in that way, because I was so much in my head about, oh, if I'm sitting at a table, everybody's gonna like judge me and this and that. And then I got out of it, and no one even cares. And like you said, the
yeah,
servers are so sweet. Like, I went on some trips by myself, and like obviously you eat by yourself, and
Yeah.
like everyone was so kind. Like there, if anything, but when you're by yourself, everyone's nicer to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
it was something that you just touched on a little bit there, but I think is super important too, is I feel like a lot of times really what it is it's an overinflated sense of ego, right?
Yep.
Of like, everybody's going to be looking at me,
Yeah.
everybody's going to be judging me, everybody's going
Yeah.
to care. And it's like 90% of the people in there probably aren't even going to notice that you're
No.
there, let alone alone. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so that helped me too, of just being like, oh, people actually don't care that much. And that was so
People don't
liberating.
care
Right?
anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, I think one big thing is everybody's fighting battles we know nothing about.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
being kind and understanding, and like if someone lashes out to you, yeah, okay, that maybe it's not the nicest thing, but you don't know what they're going through, right?
Yeah.
But then likewise, that person shouldn't lash out because you don't know what you or I is going through, right?
Yeah.
So it's just kind of having that thing of like, okay, yeah, no one gives a crap because everybody's going through their own stuff, but
Yeah.
also being aware that everybody's going through their own stuff. So be
Yeah.
a nice human.
Yeah. For
Yeah.
sure. I think, yeah, I think if you just focus on being a nice human, like if
That's,
everybody did that, right?
oh my God. I think about that all the time. Like if everybody was just like nice and understanding and respectful and empathetic, like we wouldn't.
Yes.
Yeah. You understand, right?
Yes. Yeah, I
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah. I think so. Well,
Cool.
and you need to come to a paint night. That's what you need.
I do. I do need to
Yeah.
come to a paint night. Maybe I'll show up alone and really just own it and
Yes!
refer back to this.
I'll be extra nice to you.
Yeah, perfect. My last question is
Yeah.
just, what does the next phase of your journey look like?
Okay. So, I'm looking into a storefront. So
Okay,
purchased and canvas, that's
cool.
that.
Super exciting.
Yeah, I'm super excited. It's a very big step, but
Yeah,
yeah, I just kind of doing a lot of back end work, making sure I know what I'm getting myself into before kind of jumping in blindly.
yeah,
And just kind of getting to a place where the business is self-sustaining. So I can still be there, but I don't need to be there.
hmm
Um, Having employees and such, and then growing, expanding, um, and yeah, possibly moving to a different country.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, so we'll see. It's just kind of I have goals and I have kind of a vision of what I want my life to be,
Yeah.
but I'm flexible, like there's certain things that I need and I want in my life. And so, yes, I'm working towards them, but there are things where I'm like, okay, well, is location really, is that something that's set in stone? Not really. Like I'm more so focused on those goals with business and mental health, and just kind of being happy and content with who I am and what I've put into the world.
Yeah.
And then just taking the rest as it comes, kind of going with the flow, but working. Do you know what I mean? Like you work really hard to make your dreams come true, but then also like rolling with the punches because life's
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
they're going well. Let me
Yeah.
rain on your parade a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. What about you?
Um, Really quick, just because this popped into my mind though, is one of my
Yeah.
favorite quotes, which I have no idea who said it or where I heard it, but it goes something
Yeah.
along the lines of, the only thing that will ever go according to plan is that nothing goes according to plan.
Yep.
Right. And that came up when you were
Yep.
talking about that. So
Yeah.
yeah. For me, yeah, I've still been putting a huge focus on my mental health, really exploring things there, doing a lot of work on myself. Again, just really focusing on me and trying to better myself and do things that make me happy, and getting closer to that happier spot so that I can discover, my bigger passion or my bigger
Mm-hmm.
North Star or purpose. And then, yeah, I just, for the first time, I'm going completely solo on a venture, which is super exciting and scary, and hoping to launch that in the next couple weeks here.
What?
Yes, so that's super
Oh my
exciting.
Okay.
Yeah, and then continuing to put myself out there, doing things like a podcast, stuff like that. And yeah, just really focusing again on that self-compassion and pushing myself out of my comfort zone in every chance that I can has been huge
Growth.
for me. So
That's growth. So that's good. Yay.
yes,
I'm so happy
thank
for
you.
you. I'm excited to see whatever this venture is.
It is. I'll fill you in. It's going to be announced pretty soon too, and yeah, it should be exciting. I'm excited
Cool.
for
I
it. So
know. I know it'll be great. I know.
awesome. Well,
Perfect.
where can people find you? So on Instagram, is that the best place?
Yeah, so Instagram, Facebook, or so at cakesandcanvas.com. Or sorry, wait, what? Oh my god. At Cakes and Canvas on Instagram, Cakes and Canvas on Facebook.
And that's with
Um,
K's, right?
yeah, sorry, K for Kalia. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and Canvas by Cal, those are K's as well. That's only on Instagram, and then kaliagowden.com
Awesome.
is the website. Yeah.
Awesome. I'll put some of those in the description for the episode too, so people can find you.
Awesome. Thank
But
you.
thanks so much for doing this. I had an
Of
amazing
course.
time. I'm glad that we were able to connect. And we're going to have to connect again soon.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much for choosing me to be a part of this. It was so much fun. I can't even it doesn't feel like an hour and a half. Holy moly!
Yeah.
I was like, what are we gonna talk about? Is it gonna be weird? And it was fine.
You did
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
So did you. Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
thank you.
Thanks so much. Okay.